Hey there, my name's John Scane and welcome to episode 1 of my Grandiose project. Today I'm going to be telling you what it's all about, why I started it, and what I'm hoping to accomplish with it. So join me and let's get started. The name Grandiose? Well, when you look up the definition, it means something very large, but with a sense of pretension. Here are some of my favorite definitions. The first reason I chose to call my new project Grandiose is because of the large aspect of it. In November of 2017, I was sitting in my studio struggling to figure out what I wanted to paint. I had not painted in over 2 years and had gone through some major life changes. I was finally over the hump and sitting in front of my easel, where I was working on some small paintings that I was struggling with. Suddenly, I had sort of an epiphany. I realized that I needed a new direction, something big that would push me to reinvent myself as an artist, to challenge the expectations I had of myself and of what I expected from my art. Big, a massive undertaking, the big picture. These were phrases that were popping into my head and I couldn't ignore them. An idea started to form that would merge my painting practice and photography in a way that I had not done before. I needed to push myself into doing something beyond what I thought I could do, to take on something so large that it seemed nearly impossible. I started to think about the art world and my place in it. At one point I had a career. I was a working artist that had had some success. Respectable shows, gallery representation, write-ups, and I've had many collectors over the years. But now I was facing a hard truth. After taking years off to raise my daughter, get a divorce, and start a new life, I was pretty much starting over. I hadn't kept up with any of my art world contacts, and I hadn't even stepped foot in a gallery in probably a couple years. But the thing I realized was that felt pretty good. There were no expectations. I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. I thought of how paintings are hung on museum and gallery walls, and how the really big works seem to be taken more seriously because they are done on a grand scale. The largest canvases I've ever done were about 8 by 10 feet. Big, but hardly massive. If I wanted to have a dialogue with works like that on such a big scale, what would I paint and how would I paint it? In 2015, I started to explore landscape photography. Like being a studio artist, there's a high degree of solitude there if I want it to be. Seeking out a location to find an interesting composition under the right weather conditions is challenging and always interesting. The way light, time, and place all have to come together to make an interesting photograph is always exciting. I've been to 25 countries and 39 out of the 50 United States. I consider traveling to be one of my favorite things to do. Seeing different parts of the world and experiencing cultures and geographies always gets my creative juices flowing, and traveling has been instrumental in my art making process for years. My donkey, wall, tree, houses series have all been influenced by travel. I love making photographic images. The process, the exploration, and the immediacy of it all are very exciting artistically. But the fact is, I have oil paint in my blood. Nothing gives me my fix of artistic high like applying paint to a surface. So the question I had to ask myself was, how do I combine all of my interests and passions into one artistic form that would check all my boxes? Combining my painting, photography, the need to explore, and push myself were all a criteria, and they seem to be pointing to a single direction. A pretty simple answer really, the landscape. What subject could be more challenging to try to tackle than that? The idea started off that I would go to big, impressive, and iconic locations. 10 mountain peaks or regions on every continent. I would photograph them and then turn them into large-scale paintings. I would try to document and capture all the aspects of the project, and by doing so, bring the viewer along with me through the creative process. The paintings, photography, and videos would all form a more cohesive story and conceptual whole than any one part could do by itself. I would document my travels, studio practices, and photo taking, showing the viewer different aspects of each medium as well as the work that might go into a project of this scale. The Grandiose project itself would be a conceptual performance piece of art. This brings me to the second reason I chose the name Grandiose. All of the stuff I just stated is just a bit arrogant. When I was growing up, there was sort of a rule that you didn't brag or bring attention to yourself. It showed a kind of insecurity that wasn't very attractive. I had an old art teacher that once said to me, "You can't tell a painter from a grocery clerk." His meaning in saying this was, it's not the outward appearance that is going to make you a great artist. It's the content, skill, and dedication that you have to your craft that will make you good. Now more than ever, we value flash and showiness over content and skill. And over the last 15 years or so, everyone has more access to the stage than ever before in history. It's become commonplace to brag and say, "Hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. I'm important." Now, I'm not trying to be overly harsh or critical about it. It's a part of our time and place in history, and I don't want to be one of those guys that's always lamenting on how great things used to be. But I do find it an interesting cultural study in a sense. Everyone has to have a soapbox and a microphone just to be heard. And if you don't, you're relinquished to the sidelines while the guy that's yelling loudest gets all the attention. So in a way, the Grandiose project is taking all of that pretentiousness and self-aggrandizing into account, and while skeptically embracing it, also commenting on it. Can you scream, "Hey, look at me," and still have something of substance and importance to say? That is one question I hope to find with this Grandiose project, even if it is a bit grandiose of me. Because of the inherent slowness of the painting process and the time it takes to be in the studio, not to mention making these videos and teaching 4 days a week, I plan on releasing a new episode about every 2 weeks, with the occasional quick tip or how-to video about some aspect of painting, drawing, or photography in between. So, if you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Also, any comments or questions, leave them below and I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching and see you next time.